Hello everybody. Thanks for joining the session. I am Sahil Malhotra, working as a part of platform security team in NXP. Also, I am assigned as a member engineer in Linaro Ledge Group, and both Ilyas and me have worked on this project. So today we will be discussing about how we are enabling UFI secure boot using Opti as a secure partition. So this is the recording of the session. Please park your question. We will take them in the end of the session. So let's start with the session. We will so this will be the agenda for the session. We will start with the UFI and the UFI secure boot overview. Then we will move on to the authenticated variables and what are the requirements of the authenticated variables from the overall system. Then we will move on to the what is the management mode and concept of the secure partition on ARM v8 system. And then we will discuss the use case of secure storage services in UFI. Then we will move on to discuss what is the issue in the current implementation, and in the end we will discuss the solution to the problem, that how we are solving the issue in the current implementation. So let's start with the UFI overview. So UFI full form is Unified Extensible Firmware Interface, which is a specification that defines the software interface between an operating system and a platform firmware. So this block diagram on the right hand side is specific to the system. So UFI firmware is interfacing between the ARM trusted firmware and upper layers. Upper layers can be OS loader or UFI applications and UFI driver. So basically, UFI replaces the legacy basic input-output system firmware interface. One advantage of UFI over the legacy basic input-output system is that you can directly run the UFI applications and UFI drivers on top of it. So it was originally developed as extensible firmware interface by Intel, which was deprecated in 2005, and UFI comes into the picture. Now, the latest version of UFI specs is released in March 2019. So this was the overview of the UFI. Now let's move on to the UFI secure boot overview. So UFI secure boot is a verification mechanism for ensuring that the code launched by the device firmware is trusted and that each EFI payload loaded is validated. So what does this mean? Let's see what changed in the block diagram, which we have just seen in the previous slide. Still UFI firmware, everything remains the same, but now the change is just in the upper layers. So what happens in the normal boot, UFI firmware can load any OS and EFI payloads from any of the vendor, whether it is coming from the trusted source or not, which may also lead to the compromise of the system. But with the UFI secure boot enabled, only those OS and EFI payloads will be loaded which are signed by the platform owner, whose keys are provisioned in the firmware. So in the block diagram, the boxes which are in the red border are the signed images from the platform owner. So whenever UFI tries to start these images on the system, it first verifies the signature embedded in the images, and if the signature matches, only then it allows the image to start. Otherwise, it will stop the execution of the images. So what comes under the scope of the UFI secure boot? So the next boot stages, just like kernel and grub, etc., and the authenticated variable store, which actually stores all the keys, certificate, hashes for authenticating the EFI payload. We will discuss the authenticated variables in the next slide. So let's move on to the next slide. So what are the authenticated variables? These are defined as one of the building blocks of the UFI secure boot in UFI specs. So all the keys, certificates, hashes that are required for UFI secure boot are stored as authenticated variables on the secure flash. So there are set of predefined variables that need to be programmed for the enablement and working of the UFI secure boot. So these are platform key, key exchange key, DB and DBX. So let's discuss what is the PK. So PK, this is the key which enables the secure boot and establishes a trust relationship between the platform firmware and platform owner. So it consists of a asymmetric key. It is having two parts, private key and the public key. So private key will be owned by the platform owner and public key will be enrolled into the platform firmware. Now what is KEK? KEK is key exchange key. This key establishes the trust relationship between the OS and platform firmware. So it is also an asymmetric key consisting of the public and private part. Private part will be with the software vendor and public part will be provisioned in the UEFI firmware. So okay, and next the DB. DB will contain a list of public keys that are from sources that are considered to be secure. And DB can also hold the hashes of the binary that are considered to be secure and that we will allow to run on the system. And on the other side, DBX, these are basically anti-DB keys. That is, DBX hold the key sources and hashes that are blacklisted from being secure or marked as malware. That if any images or if any keys are you don't want to run those images on the UEFI secure boot, you will put the hashes or the public keys of that signers into the DBX. And when the images try to load it onto the UEFI firmware, it will first check the DB and DBX. If any key is found in the DBX, it will not allow to run on the system. So these are the most important authenticated variables that needs to be programmed on the system. Now let's see what are the relationship between them. Now only the owner of the PK can update or add KK. That is, only the platform owner can add the keys of the software vendors. Now only the owner of the KK can update the DB and DBX. Only, so this means only the software vendor whose public keys are provisioned in the firmware can update the database. So in this way, the images which you want to get executed by the UEFI must be signed by the software vendor whose keys are in the DB. So this is the complete chain of trust in the UEFI secure boot. So moving ahead, now since the authenticated variables are the building blocks of the UEFI secure boot, they must be kept very safe from the hackers. If any malicious user get access to these variables, he or she can get access to the overall system, which can be very harmful for the ecosystem as well. So according to the UEFI specs, storing, updating and deleting of the authenticated variables must happen in an isolated environment such that only the trusted user will be able to access and modify the authenticated variable. And if there is no isolated environment, malicious code or malicious user can bypass the authentication checks and access the variable region directly. So to solve this problem, nowadays most of the CPU vendors are providing a kind of hardware partition which provides an isolated execution environment for very high security use cases, just like this, just like storing of the authenticated variables and the storing and updating of the authenticated variable. So we will see how this hardware partition can be implemented and used in the next slides. So what is the management mode? Management mode is a generic term used to describe a secure isolated execution environment provided by the CPU. For x86 systems, this can be implemented with the system management mode, and for ARM systems, this can be implemented with the concept of trust zone. So there are so in the UEFI PI specs, there are two types of management mode supported. So one is the traditional mode and other is the standalone mode. So the traditional mode is execution environment. In the traditional mode, execution environment is set up during the Dixie phase. And in the standalone execution environment can be set up during or prior to the SEC phase, and an standalone mode driver can only run in the environment which provides an isolated environment. So we can say that standalone is ideal for securing the UEFI variables and that are required for UEFI secure boot, and it also allows access to secure non-volatile storage only via the code executing in the management mode. And there are other use cases which can also be handled by the management mode, such like secure storage and secure payment, key management, secure firmware update, and just like any other software which requires an isolated execution environment. So let's see how we implemented this management mode on our ARM V8 systems. So how we can implement the management mode on ARM V8 system? It is being implemented by using the concept of secure partition on the ARM V8 system. So what is a secure partition in the ARM codes? So a secure partition is an unprivileged software sandbox environment running in the secure world under the control of the privileged software. So as shown in the block diagram, we will have ATF compiled in the secure partition management mode running in the SEL3, and there is a SPM shim layer running in the SEL1, which will relay the SVC from SEL0 into the SMC to the SEL3. Since we know that in the upcoming ARM v8.4 we have SEL2 also implemented, so this will also enable the early development of SPM code before that. So we can say that secure partition provides an isolated environment for high security sensitive use cases, and also to use to instantiate the standalone management mode in order to execute secure services. So combining both of this management mode and standalone driver of the UEFI and secure partition, our secure storage services in UEFI will look like this, as shown in the block diagram. So on the left hand side, we have applications. We have normal world running the user space applications in the EL0 and the kernel at the EL1 and UEFI firmware at the EL2 level. And on the right hand side, we have ATF running in the secure partition mode in SEL3 and SPM shim layer at a secure EL1 and with UEFI standalone driver in the secure EL0. So what happens when we try to get and set variable from kernel or UEFI firmware? It will first land into the variable SMM runtime Dixie driver, which will internally use the interface calls to talk with the secure world. So interface to do the SMC and which switch to the secure world. And in secure world, SPM in the ATF handles this SMC and routed to the standalone management mode running in the secure partition. Now this standalone management mode is having variable SM driver for variable handling, flash driver for read and write onto the secure flash, and authenticated variable library for authenticated variables functions. So and all the flash media on which we are storing our variables will be accessible only from the secure world side. So this is how we are currently handling the use case of variable storage in the UEFI. So everything looks right in here, but not exactly. So what is the issue in the current implementation? Let's discuss in the next slide. So the problem is that ARM trusted firmware can be compiled in either SPD mode or SPM mode. We didn't discuss about the SPD mode in the previous slides, so let me give you a brief about what is SPD. So SPD is secure payload dispatcher, which is present in ATF and takes care of routing the request from the normal world to the secure OS and vice versa. So SPD is required for communication between the normal world and the secure OS running in the secure world. So I think from this you have all got some hint of the problem. So now, if this is the case that ATF can be compiled in either SPD or the SPM mode, so we will not be able to run the secure storage services required for the UEFI and secure OS and trusted application on one system. So this can lead to loss of many of the use cases. One of the use cases in the IoT or edge devices. Moreover, secure OS in the secure market had limited usage up to now, but starting with the secure device onboarding, it has a great usage on IoT or edge devices. So we need some solution for this problem so that secure partition and secure OS can coexist. So we can handle the different use cases simultaneously. So now let's see how we handle this problem and what are the changes we made for this. So for solving this problem, what we did is that we have created a secure partition in Opti itself, which can be used to run the standalone application, and trusted application will not know anything about this secure partition, and they will run as they used to run on the OptiOS like before. So let's see what changed in the overall system. Now interface in the overall system, uh, instead of doing the SMC call directly, will use the Opti interface, and then Opti will do the SMC the way it used to do before, and then SPD will handle the call and route it to the OptiOS. Then the OptiOS will handle this request and move on and pass this request to the STMM. So so this is how we will be handling the problem which we are facing in the case of ATF, that either SPD or SPM mode, we can compile, either we can run the ATF in secure partition SPD mode or in the SPM mode. So this is how we are going to solve the problem. We have implemented the secure partition as part of the OptiOS only, which will help in handling both of the use cases of the secure UFI and running the UFI and running the OptiOS and secure partition side by side. So moving ahead, that what's done and what are the next steps we are going to do. So this setup is tested on the NXP LX2160A RDB board, and currently the support for the secure partition with standalone mode is being upstreamed in the Opti. You can have a look on the pull request here at the link given. And we have also created a new Dixie driver, communication Opti Dixie, which is using the Opti library, which is already upstreamed in the EDK2. And we have added the support for saving the variables on iSCSI EEPROM and eMMC RPMB in this standalone application. And we are currently in process of upstreaming all the code changes to EDK2 also, and the patches will be available soon for your review. So that's all from my side. Thank you.